All right, let's dive into the world of Bob Camblin. Houston artist back in the 1970s, a real mind bender, like mix up all these different styles and packed his art with all these like hidden meanings.
Yeah, it's like he wanted to make you think, like see the world in a whole new way, not just like look at a pretty picture and say, "Oh, that's nice."
Yeah, exactly. He wanted to shake things up. And so we've got some really cool sources for this deep dive. We've got like excerpts from an art book about his life, and then there's this YouTube video essay that like really breaks down one of his most famous paintings. It's called Figure 4.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, and get this, there's also this whole chapter from a Zen philosophy book. And guess what? It talks about Figure 4 too.
Really? Huh. Zen philosophy and a Texas artist. That's an interesting combo.
I know, right? You don't see that every day. So that sort of leads us to our big question for this deep dive. What can we learn from Camblin's work, especially this figure 4 painting, about, things like control and rigidity and how all that stuff plays into like living a fulfilling life?
It's a good question. I mean, everybody wants to have control, right? But is that always a good thing? Camlin seems to be saying maybe not.
Yeah, yeah, maybe not. So the art book really gets into Camblin's style. It talks about how he was influenced by like all these different art movements, impressionism, surrealism, cubism. It's like he took a little bit from everything and just created something totally unique.
It's true he had a real knack for blending things together.
Totally. And the book even mentions like this quote from him. He said he wanted to blow people's minds.
Right.
It wasn't just about making something pretty, it was about making you feel something, making you question things. And the coolest part is his work is full of these hidden symbols and secrets, and he actually wanted people to use their own intuition to figure them out.
Almost like he was playing a game with the viewer.
Right, exactly. And then the book highlights the 1970s as like this super important time for him. That's when his work really shifted towards this idea of metamorphosis. It even says, straight up, think metamorphosis, and you have the 1970s work in one word.
Oh, wow. That's a bold statement.
Yeah, it is. And you can really see it in the symbols he uses over and over, like puppets, scarecrows, skulls, even these glass reliquaries, those containers they use to hold, like religious relics. It's
Yeah.
like all about change and transformation, right? Life and
Yes,
death and rebirth. It's all right there in his art.
for sure. So how does this all connect back to the figure 4 painting then? This painting, it shows a figure 4 deadfall trap. Are you familiar with those?
Hmm. To be honest, I don't think I am. What is that? Is it like some kind of complicated contraption?
Not really, actually. It's pretty simple. It's like they take these sticks and they arrange them very carefully so that like when something triggers it, the whole thing collapses. It's all about balance, a very
Uh-huh.
delicate balance.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that. But what makes the figure 4 painting special? It's not just a still life of a trap, right?
Right. It's more than that. This is where it gets really interesting. See, in the painting, Camblin made the trap totally useless. Like he fixed it in place with these metal straps. The YouTube video, it really makes a big deal about this.
So the trap is trapped. That's kind of ironic.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Mm.
And that's Camblin's genius, I think. He's using this image of the trap like as a metaphor for the whole idea of control. We
Mm.
try to control everything in our lives thinking it's going to make us safer, but really a lot of times we're just holding ourselves back.
Wow, that's really insightful. So it's not really about the trap itself, it's about our whole approach to life. Okay.
Exactly. And the Zen philosophy book, it brings in another layer to this. It describes like the painting's visuals. The warm browns of the wood against the cool blues and greens of the background. And then there's these faint numbers stenciled on there, almost like a blueprint or code or something.
Oh, yeah. It's like he's making us think about structure and design and how, maybe that relates to how we try to plan and control our lives.
I think you're right on the money there. And then the book goes on to connect this to the Zen idea of attachment, the idea that the more we try to cling to things, the more we suffer. It even compares the painting to things like instruction manuals or diagrams.
Now that you mention it, yeah, it does have that sort of technical feel to it.
Right. So it makes you think, right, are we so focused on following the rules, on sticking to our plans, that we lose the ability to adapt, to just, go with the flow of life?
Whoa. Yeah. I'm already seeing this painting in a whole new light.
Hmm.
And we're just getting started.
And it gets even more interesting if you think about, one specific detail. The YouTube video mentions this. There's this small red object like
Yep.
maybe it's bait or something. It's stuck right on the trap's trigger point.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. It definitely caught my eye. What do you think he was going for with that?
Yeah, it's a really striking image, and it suggests that, even though it's all frozen in place, the trap hasn't actually caught anything. Like nothing from the outside. It's almost like it's only managed to hurt itself.
Huh. So instead of being effective, it's become like self-destructive. It's like
Yeah,
this whole idea of control backfiring on you.
exactly. It's like by trying so hard to control everything, we actually just cause more suffering. It makes me think of that quote by Shunryu Suzuki, the Zen teacher. He said, "You are perfect just as you are, and you could use a little improvement."
Oh, that's a good one. How do you see that connecting to this idea of like over control?
Well, if we're already perfect, then maybe all this trying to control every little thing in our lives, maybe that's actually preventing us from actually growing and becoming our best selves. Like we're so afraid of making a mistake, of things not going according to plan, that we end up stifling our own potential.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It's like we're giving up being genuine, being authentic, just so we can feel a little bit more secure.
Exactly. Trading realness for like this illusion of safety. And you know what's interesting? The YouTube video also brings up the I Ching. Have you heard of that?
Mm.
It's this ancient Chinese text and it has all these like symbols and stuff. And it talks about these two hexagrams called Kan and Kun. They represent different ways of like being in the world, different approaches to life.
I've heard of the I Ching, but I'm not super familiar with it. Could you maybe explain what those hexagrams mean?
Yeah, so Kan, it's all about adaptability. It's like water. You know how it just flows around obstacles. It represents navigating challenges with grace and flexibility, going with the flow instead of trying to like force things to happen a certain way. And then Kun, it represents feeling trapped, like you're stuck or limited.
Mm.
But it also has this potential for, for breaking free from those limitations,
Yeah.
for liberation.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the connection to the painting here. So Kun is like the figure 4 trap when it's working properly. It's free to move and function the way it's supposed to. And then Kun is more like that trapped trap in the painting, all rigid and unable to actually do what it's designed to do.
Yeah, you got it. And both of these states, they're important for understanding Campbell's message. He's showing us both sides, the potential for flow and adaptability, and then the danger of getting too caught up in control and rigidity.
It's like he's saying, hey, here are two paths. One leads to freedom and growth, and the other one leads to being stuck and miserable. Choose wisely.
Haha. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It reminds me of that line from Lao Tzu, the Taoist philosopher. He said, the soft overcomes the hard, the flexible overcomes the rigid. And it's like Camblin took that idea and turned it into a painting.
The Zen book also talks about this concept called shunyata in relation to the painting. I'm not really familiar with that word, though. What does it mean?
So shunyata, it's often translated as emptiness or voidness.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean like nothing, like nihilism or something. It's more about recognizing that everything is interconnected and nothing is permanent. It's about letting go of those fixed ideas and attachments.
Oh, I see. I can see how that relates back to the figure 4 then. Like, the trap is trying so hard to be fixed and permanent that it's become completely useless. By clinging to that rigid structure, it's actually lost its ability to function.
Exactly. True effectiveness, it comes from being adaptable, being open to change. It's like in life. If we spend all our time trying to force things to go a certain way, we might miss out on the beauty of unexpected things. The potential for growth and transformation that comes when you embrace the unknown.
It's like we're so busy building walls that we forget to leave a door open for new possibilities.
That is such a good way to put it. I think that really gets to the heart of what Camblin is trying to say. He's not just an artist, he's like a philosopher, using his art to explore these really deep questions about, like, how we should live our lives.
Right. And he's challenging us to think about a different way of being, one that's less about control and more about flow. About embracing the messy, unpredictable beauty of life.
I couldn't have said it better myself, and that's what makes this figure 4 painting so powerful. It's not just about a trap. It's like a mirror reflecting our own tendencies towards control and rigidity. And it's inviting us to question those tendencies and consider a more liberating way of being.
This has been such a mind-blowing conversation. I'm seeing this painting and honestly my whole life in a totally new way.
I'm glad to hear that. Before we wrap up, I want to go back to that little red object, the one stuck on the trigger point. You said it really stood out to you.
Yeah, it did. It just feels so symbolic. I can't stop thinking about it. What do you make of it?
Well, the YouTube video doesn't really give a straight answer,
Hmm.
but it does say that, in a way, that the trap has kind of hurt itself. It's this really powerful visual metaphor for how trying to control everything can sometimes backfire. It can lead to consequences you didn't even intend.
Yeah, I like that. It's like the red thing represents the price we pay for clinging to control. All the things we sacrifice in the name of security. And maybe it's not even worth it in the end.
I think that's a really insightful interpretation.
Yeah.
And I love how Camblin leaves it up to the viewer to decide what it means. It's part of what makes his work so engaging. He's inviting us to join the conversation, to bring our own ideas to the table.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, here's the puzzle, let's figure it out together, which I think is such a cool way to approach art and honestly life too. Yeah, it really is. This whole idea, this trap being limited by our own need for control. I think it's something we can all like relate to on some level.
Oh, for sure. It's totally universal. We
Right.
all crave certainty.
Yeah.
I want to feel safe. So we try to control things,
Hmm.
our environment, our relationships, even our own emotions. But that just leads to like this rigidity. And in the end, it's like we're trapped.
It's like we're building this cage around ourselves, thinking we're protecting ourselves from, I don't know, the wildness of life or something. But really, we're just shutting out all the beauty, all the potential that comes from the unknown.
Right. Exactly. It's all about perspective. What if, instead of trying to control everything, we embraced the flow, the uncertainty, just the messy, unpredictable nature of life?
That's a pretty radical idea, isn't it? To just let go of the reins and trust that, like, things will work out, even if it's not exactly how we planned it.
I know, it can be scary. But I think it's also super liberating. When we just surrender to the present moment, when we're
Yes.
open to the unexpected, that's when we really start to live.
Like that saying, right? Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. Maybe Camblin's trying to tell us to just ditch the plans and be present. Just enjoy the ride.
I think you're right. Even the title of that YouTube video, it really nails this whole idea. Figure 4, the paradox of the trap. It's a paradox that works on so many levels.
Doesn't it? It's like we trap ourselves with our own fears, our need for certainty, our resistance to change. And in doing that, we limit ourselves, we stifle our creativity, and we miss out on all the richness that life has to offer.
It's such a good reminder. Sometimes the best thing we can do is just surrender, let go of the reins, and trust the flow. Embrace that can energy we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and find the courage to step into the unknown, even when it feels scary, even when we're not sure what's going to happen.
Because it's in those moments, the uncertain ones, when we push ourselves outside our comfort zones, that's when we really figure out who we are and what we're capable of.
That's a good point. Thinking about this painting, these figure 4, I keep thinking about those numbers, the stenciled ones in the background. They almost look like markings on a blueprint or a diagram.
Yeah, you're right. Both sources mention those.
Yeah.
He definitely put them there on purpose.
And it makes me wonder, what if he's doing that on purpose, like blurring the lines between art and instruction?
That's interesting. What are you thinking?
Well, on the one hand, the painting is definitely art. It's beautiful, it makes you think, it's full of symbolism. But it also has this, like, instructional quality, like a diagram. It's showing us how something works, or in this case, how it doesn't.
I see what you're saying. It's like he's giving us this visual puzzle, something to figure out, not just with our eyes, but with our minds and hearts.
Exactly. And I think that's like the core of his message, this duality. He's using instruction to make us question our ideas about control. It's like he's saying, hey, here's how not to live your life. Learn from this trap and choose something different.
That's really insightful. It adds a whole other dimension to the painting and to Camblin himself.
And it gives us even more to think about.
It does. Camblin's figure 4 is like this gift. It invites us to think about control and freedom, about how those two things are connected. And it helps us find our own path to a better life.
Well, folks, I think that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive into the amazing world of Bob Camblin and his incredible painting, Figure 4.
I hope you've enjoyed the journey with us.
And that you'll take these ideas with you as you go about your day, your week, your life. Embrace flexibility. Question things. And maybe, just maybe, let go of the need to control every little thing.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those minds open.